What's up, everybody? It's Max Digital here, where I help you break down tech. So in this video, we're going to talk about the specs of the Tmobile G1. This is the first real mass market Android phone. This phone came out almost 13 years ago, and it was competing against the first iPhone, the king of smartphones. So let's go ahead and take a look. So if you want me to review a phone or have a request or just want to contact me, I'm on all over social media, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Telegram. So just drop me a line for the next phone or tech product you want me to talk about. So the Tmobile G1, that was my first Android phone 13 years ago. And it was very different. I mean, obviously it's going to have a lot of crappy specs, very primitive software, but it was the beginning of what we have now in 2021, 13 years later. The first thing that strikes me different about this phone that stood out was that it had a physical flip out keyboard, or you flip out the screen and it had a keyboard underneath. So that was one advantage over the first iPhone. Also had physical buttons at the bottom. So you had like 4 buttons, very different from the all screen phones that you have today. It had a little trackball type thing going on in there too, so it was way different. It did have some things that, like the notification shade, that was something that was brought in with the software. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the regular specs. So yeah, it was released in September of 2008. It was like a T-Mobile exclusive. The build quality was very cheap. It was all plastic. The screen wasn't a nice glass, like super quality material. It was just like everything around the phone about it was, really cheap. The back came off. It had a removable battery, things that we do not see in phones nowadays. So the dimensions, it was had a height of 4.6 inches, width of 2.1 inches, and a thickness of 0.67. So it was a very tiny phone, and it was very thick as well. It weighed about 5.57 ounces, so very heavy, weird, awkward weight to it, considering the size of the screen and the overall dimensions of the device. Now we have something like the Galaxy S21 5G, which has a gigantic screen and stuff like that. It's a big old size, but it weighs almost as much as the first G1 Android phone. So the SIM card was a big old mini SIM card. So that was like 2 generations ago. That nothing has that now. Like I said, it had a trackball. The display was very tiny. It was 3.2 inches. Compare that to the S21 or something like that. We're pushing like 7 inches on phones nowadays. Brace yourself, the screen to body ratio was barely 47 screen to body ratio. So there was more bezel and plastic than the actual display in screen size. It had a TFT display, just very primitive. Resolution was at 320 by 480 pixels at a 3:2 ratio. The PPI is 180. So even the cheapest smartphone nowadays is in the 200s. So this one was, very primitive. But it offered Corning Gorilla Glass, believe it or not. So for the OS, it was Android 1.6 Donut. We're now on Android 12, 13 just about. This was back then when Android started naming everything with desserts. It was like very primitive. There was like simple stuff, like the notification shade was like the only thing that really made it stand out on the software side. It was very clunky. There wasn't a lot of apps. There wasn't a lot of apps in the App Store. It was just very, very like choppy. There was, you couldn't really do much on the phone itself. It had a Qualcomm chipset. I don't even know what kind. There was no Galaxy S, or there was no Snapdragon anything on this phone. CPU was a 528 megahertz or whatever. ARM11 processor. It was just primitive. Adreno 130 GPU. You know, forget about playing any type of real games on this. It was so bad. But it did have one cool quality. It had a micro SD card. So that was something that really made it stand out from the first iPhone. And it had to have that micro SD card slot because internally it didn't have 1 gig of RAM. It had 192 megabytes of RAM. So it was like 1/5 of a gig. It was pretty bad. But you could step it up and get a 256 megabytes. So it was just a piece of crap garbage for the RAM and stuff like that. So, but there wasn't a lot of apps that you're gonna run anyway. But this easily could get bogged up real quickly. The main camera on this device was 3.15 megapixels, and it had autofocus though. And you could shoot video. I believe it was very low quality, just super garbage. Had no selfie camera. There was no thumbprint reader, no fingerprint reader. There was no wireless charging. There was no NFC. I mean, this was super bare bones. It didn't have a headphone jack. It had its own, you know, its own weird charging port that, you know, you had to. It came with an adapter dongle so you can plug in regular headphones. Something you don't see anymore. You just either get a headphone jack or just a charging port nowadays. Well, actually, it does kind of feel like you know like a dongle life today, but back then it was just a weird charging port. It had Bluetooth 2.0, and that only supported like primitive headsets. It had GPS. That was pretty cool. And the charging port was a mini USB. That's what I was trying to say. This had a mini USB charging port. So that was the same port used to hook up your headphones if you needed the adapter. Or I believe these came with the headphones with that adapter already on it, if I'm not mistaken. It had little, you know, apps. It had your voice memo. It had a music player and stuff like that. So that was kind of something that made it stand out. You put in your own media in there. Now to the battery, it was sad. It was removable, but it had a 1,150 milliamp battery. Now we have 6,000 milliamp battery, so you could fit 3 of these batteries into one of the phones we have today, which was crazy. So battery life sucked ass. It came in a couple of different colors, like white, black, and a nasty brown. Yeah, this was a super primitive phone. This phone was 3G. It didn't have 4G LTE. It didn't have 5G. You know, this was a time when T-Mobile was kind of late to 3G, and this was one of the phones that made it more mainstream, honestly. And T-Mobile didn't have the iPhone at the time either. So this was like the headlining, exciting phone. But although this phone was super primitive compared to today's standards, it set the stage for what was to come. And yeah, people were excited about it, including me. At the time when the first iPhone came out, I did not like it. I thought it catered to expensive business people. And then this phone really caught my eye. So I did actually, you know, it at the time it was very exciting. Not exciting today, if you think about it. But anyways, that has been my little thoughts on the T-Mobile G1 here in 2021, 13 years later. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch me on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Telegram. You know where to find me. Peace out.